Hi everyone, I'm here with Rachel Ellis today, and I can't wait to hear more of her story. She lives here in St. George, and this is the first time I've met her in person. So we're both part of this little community that I don't know who exactly started it.
Lorraine Jessak.
Okay, It's called the Relieved Society on Facebook. So if there's anyone local in St. George and you're looking for a community of women who have left the LDS church, then you can come join us, because once we're not so quarantined, once the coronavirus is over, I think we'll, plan more things.
Yeah, we do a lot of in-person stuff. It's mostly in person.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I like the most. So
Me too.
I'm looking forward to getting to know more of the women in that group, and so I'm looking forward to hearing more of your story. I know a little bit, so I just would love for you to just share like a little bit of your background. I know you have 4 kids, and you have it's only been about a year and a half since you left the church, so tell us how that was and why and all that.
Okay, well, yeah, I have 4 kids. My oldest, it just turned 17, and she was born male, and when she was about almost 13, we found out that she was trans, and so at the time, I think I was in the Young Women's Presidency. My husband was a Sunday school teacher, and
how do you know, though, when...
In this case, it was really difficult. Most of the time, I wouldn't say most of the time. Some of the time, the kids kind of show you, like, by their preferences, by how they act. But kids like mine, where they don't feel dysphoria, they don't feel like they don't fit in their gender until they start going through puberty.
Okay.
And then it, freaks them out. Yeah. They're like, what is going on with me? I don't know what's wrong.
Yeah.
And so, and she didn't have the words to put to it, like what was happening for her. And we certainly didn't. We knew that she was depressed. We knew she wasn't happy. We thought it had to do with going to the intermediate school. Mm-hmm. Like just the change of, having lots of classes and being, expected to do more and going through puberty. We thought maybe that was, part of it, but we didn't know why until we were reading some of her texts, because we were really worried about her. And some of the behaviors we were seeing were really dangerous.
Oh.
And she, and so we came across a text that said something about hormones, and we were like, oh. At first we thought, she had said something about the LGBTQ activity, or community, and we thought, oh, maybe she's gay.
Yeah.
And when my husband said that to me, he said, well, I just want to brace you. We might have a gay kid. And I was like, is that all? Okay. I'm like, that's fine.
Yeah.
And then an hour later he came back and he's like, I've been reading more texts. I don't think that at the time we were saying he, but
yeah.
I don't think that she's gay. I think it's something else. And then that just kind of rocked our world. We had no idea what to do with that.
Because because her preference now would be a male, right? If she were to date, dating a male.
Oh, well.
But she wants to be a woman.
Yeah. First. So for her, she's attracted to all people.
Oh,
and
okay.
So, but at the time, that was where our mind first went to.
Okay.
Was because we knew that we were pretty sure that she liked girls.
Okay.
And so we were like, how does this make sense? But really she, she just feels like she's a girl.
Okay.
And then, her preference for dating and,
okay.
and attraction.
Would be anyone.
Yeah. In her case, it would be anyone. She's had crushes on girls and boys.
Okay.
And trans people and, so she's kind of all over.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, good. Thanks for explaining that, because I wondered how that works.
Yeah, so that was our first thought, was wait, that doesn't make sense. She likes girls. We know she likes girls, but she also likes boys. Now we know that. Uh-huh. And currently she has a crush on someone who's trans. So,
okay. So Literally anyone.
Yeah, literally
Okay.
anyone. So she's pansexual, and that's how she identifies even more so than, like, she doesn't identify, like, she doesn't hang the trans pride flag on her wall. She has the pan pride flag on her wall.
Okay, what is that?
So pansexual, that's what it is that she likes anyone.
Okay.
So not, like, it's similar to being bi.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to add the P to the LGBTQ?
I mean,
is that like a newer term?
Yeah, like plenty of people say LGBTQAIP.
Oh, okay.
But I don't. I just say LGBTQ plus.
Yeah, all of the above. Yeah.
So yeah, she's in there.
Okay.
But yeah, that's what that is. And generally, it's a variation on bisexual.
Okay.
So.
Okay. So.
Yeah.
So when you first were experiencing, like, trying to figure out what exactly it was, then...
Yeah, for us, it was terrifying because we knew the family proclamation and we knew that she didn't fit into it. And So
it was more terrifying to find out that she was trans than it would be to just simply be gay.
Well, it was, which is funny because after a few months, we kind of justified it. Because in the proclamation it says, marriage is between a man and a woman.
Oh, so you thought...
so that's like pretty cut and dry. But
yeah.
in my mind, I felt more comfortable with a gay person.
Okay.
Just generally.
Yeah.
But then, as we kind of looked into it, we were like, well, gender is eternal, but what if her gender really is female? And eternally, she's female,
Yeah.
So, like, in our minds, we kind of justified it. We were like, well, this is how we interpret the proclamation.
Yeah.
And we interpret that she is female. Now, that doesn't really take into account non-binary or, anything in the middle.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But, yeah, so it was really scary. Like, for a long time, like, my husband and I would discuss and worry about her salvation and our salvation as her parents.
Oh.
Because we were like, what if we support her in this and then we're like damning ourselves and her,
my gosh,
like,
yeah.
and my mother-in-law wanted to have the devil cast out of her. Like, when she found out, that was
Really?
her first thought was,
She thought, like,
Adam, you need
blessing.
to give her a blessing and cast the devil out of her. That needs to happen. Like, and my husband, like, considered it. Because he's like, well, what if no one else has done that? What if that is what's wrong? Like, what if, and I was like, there's no devil in my kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, but, I mean, we're kind of not following, like, the exact timeline, so I hope that doesn't get confusing. But
Yeah.
at the time, I told him, and I reached out to one of my fellow Mama Dragons and said, what do you think I should do? Like, about this, casting the devil out. And she's like, oh, honey, that's not the first time someone's thought of that.
Oh.
and her response to me was...
Wait, how did you get connected with Mama Dragons?
Yeah, see, this
so
is...
early on.
We're missing chunks.
Okay,
I should probably go back. Okay, so first off, when we found out, our first thought was we need to find our counselor. So we started looking for a counselor.
Okay.
And we had some misses. For sure. We met with one counselor that was saying really transphobic things. We didn't really know that they were transphobic at the time, but, like, we knew it didn't feel right.
Yeah.
We were like, no, we don't know anything about being transgender, but this guy knows less than us,
Yeah.
So we were like, this isn't a good fit. So anyway, it took us a while to find a good therapist. We found one that had practiced in Utah County, and
were all of them Mormon to start out
well,
with?
that's what we were looking for.
Yeah.
We were looking for someone Mormon.
Yeah.
Like, we were looking for someone who would keep our kid on the path,
Yeah, exactly,
And so we had found this one that she did, like, she had in her profile that she was LDS and that she had worked with transgender people.
Okay.
And she was transitioning to working down here in St. George from Utah County, and we were like, this is perfect. So we got Cindy in with her, and within a couple of months, it became clear that our paths were diverging.
Oh.
We could see that she had a workbook for her that was like a Christian workbook, kind of designed to keep you in your gender, keep you in, like, to not allow you to explore.
Okay.
And at the time, like in the beginning, that was what we wanted. She had the priesthood. We needed to keep her in, on the path.
Yeah.
But within a few months, like, she went to a summer camp that summer. And while she was there, it was at ASU, and they had signs up everywhere saying, your gender is safe here, that sort of thing. And so she saw those signs and took advantage of that. So we dropped her off, and she told everyone, my name is Cindy, and had her name tag printed with it. And when we came to pick her up and asked for her by her birth name, they didn't know what we were talking about.
Oh.
They didn't even know.
She just changed her name without even telling you? Or did she
just to them, just at camp.
You
She's
didn't
like,
even know
I'm going to go by Cindy. And so that summer was pretty tumultuous. We kept trying to suppress that. She wanted to be called Cindy, and we said, well, we want you to be safe, and we don't want people to hurt you, and so just don't tell anyone. We just wanted to keep it under wraps. And then it just started, my husband started looking into things a little bit more, and he said to me once, what if this is real? What if she really is trans, and by telling her that she can't be who she is, we're actually making her not safe? And it was right about that time that I kind of started looking at it differently. Like, oh my gosh, what if we're what's making her not safe?
Mm-hmm.
And we hadn't really seen from that perspective before. We were more worried about what other people would do to her or say to her.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it was that October, as we were getting ready for Halloween, I asked her if she wanted to dress as a girl, and she jumped on it.
Oh.
And I started reaching out. I had a high school acquaintance that I had seen a while back that he had posted a blog about his daughter transitioning to female. And so I reached out to him and was like, I don't know anything. What do I do? What do I do? And he sent me a book, and he made their blog public again. Like, they had taken it down. And
were they Mormon?
They had been.
Oh.
And they had left.
Okay.
And I didn't really know why until I went back and reread the blog.
Oh.
And then I was like, oh my gosh, yeah. Because they had taken their daughter to church in a dress. And the bishop was like, no,
really?
You can't do that.
Oh my God.
And that was when they left, because their daughter was so spiritual, like super spiritual. And she was really little and had told her mom that her spirit was a girl. And so, it sent them on this path of, this isn't going to work for us. We can't stay here. Yeah. This isn't safe for our daughter. Mm-hmm. And so they looked into all of this stuff. And then I started looking into all of this stuff that they had gone through years before. And I started looking for ways to be Mormon and trans. Okay, how can we do both?
Yeah.
How can we be both?
Yeah.
Because I still fully believed, but I believed that her spirit is female, and she just needs to, she just needs to be safe to be female.
Yeah.
And so I found North Star, which I recommend only if you're super believing. If you're super believing LDS, it's a good place to start.
Okay. Yeah.
If you're not, don't start there.
Okay. So that was a good place for you to start.
It was a good starting place. I took Cindy to their conference, and they had this little teen group that they did, and then they had a therapist come in and talk to all us parents, and and it was the first time I'd met trans adults that were out as trans, and I heard their stories, and I took my parents.
Oh, yeah.
Who are super, super, super Orthodox.
Yeah.
And it really was safe for them because they were so believing, and this was a way to do both, you know?
Oh.
To be supportive, but still follow the prophet, you know? Like.
So how do they stay Mormon? Do they just not have a
now,
relationship?
yeah,
Like,
now they can't really.
Yeah.
But because the leaders have come out and said, you know, interpreted the proclamation as this is what it believes. Because before that, we all just kind of said, no, we interpreted our own way.
Oh.
And, but yeah, if they're trans, if they just don't transition, you know, if they just live in their
they can act.
gender.
Oh, they just don't have any surgeries or hormone therapy.
Yeah. Or they don't tell the bishop.
Oh.
That, you know,
Okay.
like those are pretty much the only ways you can get away with it at this point now.
Wow.
You just are secret.
Oh.
You know, so you can either be stealth, like live as your affirmed gender, but never tell anyone that you were ever previously another gender.
Oh.
Or you just stuff it down and dress in private, or, you know, whatever. Like, those are pretty much the only ways you can stay Mormon and be trans.
Wow.
Which is a really hard life.
Yeah. That does not sound very happy.
A lot of trans people describe it as being held underwater. Like, you know, you can only do it for so long.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So, but I could see that. That took like one conference at North Star, and I could see that those trans adults were not healthy and happy unless they were living
you could tell.
in their gender. Yeah. It was pretty clear. That, and that all of the trans people that were healthy and happy had good family support, that their family was on board. The ones that were doing like really dangerous things, living really unhappy or promiscuous lives, you know, or, you know, not indulging, but coping, using drugs and things like that, they were usually the ones that didn't have family support. And so that didn't take long to figure out that I needed to be on board. And so within, I don't know, a very short period of time, we started calling her Cindy and using female pronouns at home. And then, so like from the time we found out until a year later, that's when she started living as herself. And so, yeah.
This was, you hadn't left the church yet?
No.
Okay.
So at like right about that time, it had been almost a year since we'd found out. I told her she didn't have to go to church anymore. And it was a little bit, like my husband was a little bit upset. He's like, why would you say that? Now the other kids are going to want to stay home. And I'm like, yeah, but you see how it feels when she has to put on her boy costume to go to church, and I have to body block the deacons from having her pass the sacrament because that was so dysphoric for her. You know, like to do this very, very male thing. It caused her so much panic and anxiety that she'd just sit there and she'd just freeze up. And so, like, you know, I defended it to my husband. I said, listen, it's not safe for her. And until it's safe, I'm not going to make her go. And he's like, okay, then we won't make her go. We'll just keep going. And so the other kids did fight. You know, they were like, why does Cindy get to stay home and we don't have to? And I'm like, well, it's just not a safe place for her, you know? And it caused a lot of dissonance, you know, a lot of like, but why? Why is it safe for me and not for her? And even in myself, even in my husband, like, how do you justify believing in something that doesn't...
You can't all be together.
I did miss her a lot in the pew. Like we were like Mormon elite, you know, in the presidencies, and so it was really hard to not have her in the pew with us.
Wow, what kinds of callings did you and your husband have?
I was usually in young women. That's where I'd been the most. At that time, I was in the young women presidency. before that, I had been the primary chorister, and I'd been in young women presidencies before that, and in a primary presidency, and young women before that. Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, mostly always in a presidency. And my husband, actually, he'd been going through kind of his own faith crisis even before we were married.
Oh, really?
He'd had cracks in his shelf that
steadily
over time
ignore.
Right, yeah, because he wanted the eternal family, and he was willing to, like, you know, set some things aside and just say, well, but I want this. And so that was actually the hardest thing for him to let go of, was the eternal family, where for me, I was like, I think we're going to be eternal
totally.
Anyway.
I think I've always, I never really questioned that. I did question God and all this, and I'm not like, yeah, I know exactly 100% that there is a God and what he looks like and all that, you know?
Right, yeah.
But I'm okay with it. But that was my biggest fear in the beginning. Like, well, then why are we here, you know? Like,
what's the purpose?
There's no purpose. And that was the scariest thing for me. But then once I kind of calmed back down and realized that, well, I didn't actually know beforehand. I just chose to believe that. So I can still choose to believe certain things that make me feel okay for now. And to get through this life, to feel like I have a purpose.
Yeah.
But the eternal families was never in question. I just, once I kind of regained certain beliefs, like that we all have souls and that a soul never dies, like I always just automatically believe that then I'll be with the souls that I connect with and that I'm here with now, and I'll always be with them, you know?
Yeah, 100%. That's how I feel too. Like, that, it just seems like families are like this basic thing across any culture, that we connect with people, we make connections in this life, and that to me feels like what it must be about. It's about that love, it's about those relationships. And so, like, to me, it doesn't make sense that would end with death. But yeah, definitely a tricky, hard thing to, like, wrap your mind around after you have to let go of so many other things, you know? Like, so we kept going for a long time and just kind of made it work. I found other moms that were making the church work for them, and they were walking this line of, like, being really supportive and being an ally while still, you know, maintaining their membership in the church. And so I thought, I can do it too. I'm going to be that rainbow lady at church that's safe for all those kids that are there, that, you know. And so that was what I was going to do.
Yeah.
But it just got harder and harder. Like, it got really hard. I was involved in so much the LDS trans community that I saw really painful excommunications. I started to see all these things behind the scenes that were so damaging that the leaders were saying, but weren't claiming. They weren't claiming responsibility for. They were hurting these people and making excuses for why it was okay, and I couldn't keep following that. Like, I couldn't pay my tithing to that.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't pay my tithing so that they could use it to write these amicus briefs that would take away my daughter's rights. You know, it just felt icky and it felt wrong, and I got to a point where I was trying to teach young women, and I couldn't say the party line anymore. Like, I couldn't
say the what?
The party line. I couldn't say what the bishop would want me to say. I couldn't say what was in the manual, you know, like, because I didn't believe it anymore.
Yeah.
And it felt wrong to take these young kids down this path, you know? And so that's when, like, I started talking to my husband about how it just didn't feel right, and I didn't know where to go from there. And then he told me this experience that he had. And he's one of those people that never felt like he got answers to his prayers. He never felt like he felt the things that he was supposed to feel as an LDS person. And so when he told me that he felt like he'd had a vision, I was like, what? This is the man that stopped going to the temple with me because he couldn't, like, justify it anymore. Like, and he's like, I can't say that I believe that the prophets are prophets anymore. And so then he stopped going to the temple, and that was even before our daughter came out as trans. And so he was still serving as, you know, Sunday school teacher, you know, primary teacher, those sorts of callings. He was still there every week and solid, and never, you know, never just didn't show up or anything. But he couldn't say that in a temple recommend interview. And then here he's telling me that he'd had a vision. And I was like, what? He said that he had seen in his hands a handful of jelly beans, and that they looked really good, and he wanted to eat some of them, but as he reached to take one, a cockroach popped up. Like, and then as he like brushed it away and was like, ugh, and he's like, well, you know, to prove it to himself that it wasn't ruined, it was fine, he ate a jelly bean, and then all these cockroaches popped up, like tons of little heads popped up and started running around.
That's creepy.
Like, ew, right? And he knew immediately that was the church.
Oh, wow.
He's like, you know, how much longer can we justify all these icky things that feel wrong and feel horrible just for the sake of those jelly beans? Like these little things that are not fulfilling in any way. We just like it.
Yeah. That's such a
good analogy. And so he told me this, and he said, where do you see us in a year? And I was like, I don't know. And he said, because I don't see us in the church in a year.
Wow.
And that night, basically, we laid out our plan. We were going to get our daughter baptized that fall, and then we were done. Because she was our youngest
daughter. Oh, the youngest.
Our very youngest. So
you just wanted to at least get them all baptized.
Finish it all out. And he says, you know, like, just in case it's true.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel that. For me, it was more like, all the kids had this milestone, and she should have this milestone if she wants it.
Yeah.
But we did give her the choice, and she almost backed out.
Oh, really?
Like, she could feel the dissonance in our home. I know that she felt it. She's so perceptive. And we went shopping for a baptism dress, and she burst into tears.
Really?
Was like, I don't think I can do it, you know. And I was like, listen, no one's going to make you do it. And she said, Grandma's going to make me do it.
Oh.
And she was pretty intuitive. She was right. Grandma would have pretty much forced it.
Really?
And so I empathize that, you know, that she had felt all that pressure. But in the end, it was a good day. We had a big rainbow day.
Oh, really?
You know, I like to look for rainbows.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I pulled out all my stuff from Pride.
Oh, that's so awesome.
And then like a month later, we told the kids that we didn't believe anymore.
Oh. So were there other things that as you start, you know, first it starts with this, your own daughter.
For me, it was, yeah.
And then do you dive deeper, or was that
did.
enough for you to be like, this is absolutely not
that
true?
That was it for me.
Yeah.
Like, my husband had read the essays. We'd looked into the Seer Stone. We'd looked into the Book of Abraham. I had always had a problem with blacks in the priesthood. Like, that had always bothered me. Mm-hmm. But I just kept telling my husband, I just have faith. And it's going to be fine. And it wasn't until it threatened one of my babies that, you know, like...
Mama bear.
Mama dragon.
Yeah.
Breathing fire.
Yeah.
You know? But for him, I mean, he'd already started, like, pulling back. I mean, 20 years earlier when he'd heard President Hinckley say that in his 60 Minutes interview, like, he said something like...
either it's true or it's the biggest.
Right. But he had told, or maybe it was Larry King, I can't remember, but he had said that he didn't know that we believed that we would be gods.
Oh.
And he's like, what do you mean? You're the prophet. That's what I've been taught my whole life.
Yeah.
That's what I'm working for. You know, that's what it all means. You know, like, how can you say that you don't know that we believe that?
Yeah.
And that was the first crack in his shelf. was like, if the prophet's going to lie on TV, like, what else is he lying about?
Mm-hmm.
And then from there on, he saw all of it. He could see all of it, but he went on a mission, and he married me in the temple. He hated the temple. Like, he was pretty upfront about that from the beginning. Like, I don't like the temple. I'll go if you ask me to, but I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't figure out why. I was so in love with it all. I was like Miss Molly Mormon. I loved it all, and I couldn't see any of it. Like, I couldn't see any of the weirdness. I didn't see that it was a cult in any way. You know?
It is crazy, right? To look back now and be like, how did I not see that? You know, like, what must have other people have thought about
about the things I was saying that were so weird.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know what's funny is now looking back, sometimes I would, like, as a Mormon, think back on certain encounters with people that were not Mormon, and I would think in my mind, like, they probably think we're so great. Like, they probably feel like this. They probably feel this sense of, like, wow, like, maybe I should look into what they're doing in their life. You know, like, such an arrogant thing.
Right.
Like, people are just looking at us like, we are amazing. Like, there's something about those Mormon people. I think I want to look into that religion. I would think that all the time.
I 100% did too.
Yeah.
I really, really did. I know, crazy.
Yeah.
But my husband totally saw, like, he could see it. And he knew that he was just going to have to stay in forever with me, like, to be with me. For our family to be together, he's like, okay, I just will stuff it down and I will just do it forever.
Sounds very similar to Sean.
Really?
He just had a lot of things that he did not like about the church from way early into our marriage. Mm-hmm. And he just kind of was like, well, I value my marriage and my family, so I will just stuff it down. And then when I finally said, I don't think I believe it anymore, he was just like, what? But deep down he's like, yes!
I know that it was hard for Adam in some ways, like, because when I was ready to transition out, he was like, wait a minute, I don't know if I'm ready. Like, because he was still holding on to that eternal family. He was really hoping for that. And then I was like so ready. I was like, no, I'm good. We're good. Let's go. You know, and he's like, wait a minute, you know, I sacrificed for 20 years. Like, are you sure? You know? And I know that was really kind of hard for him. Like, and to throw all of the gender roles, like, out the window, like, for him to be like, oh my gosh, all this time I've kept you home as a stay-at-home mom, and she probably resents me. And he did tell me at one point too, like, that he would never tell me what he really felt about the church because he knew I would divorce him. And I'm like, what? I never in a million years would divorce you. And he's like, well, why wouldn't you? Like, if I couldn't take you to the eternities, why would you ever stay with me? And so, like, we definitely came at it from a different perspective.
Yeah, I didn't know she was there. There's a dog over there.
But yeah, he sees it from a completely different perspective than I do, where I value the relationships so much and I just know that they're going to last. Mm-hmm. And he's like, he sees it from a much more logical perspective of, like, if this rule is true, then this rule is true. And, you know, like, it's different way of looking at it.
Yeah, for sure. Sean was the same way too, and there were different things too where he was like, well, because like the very day that we decided, like, realized, wait a minute, this church is not even true after hours and hours of Mormon Stories podcast and just really diving deep. I was like, I just went straight to my drawers and grabbed all of our garments and was like, that was the most exciting thing for me, to throw them away.
Right.
Like, I was like, I don't have to wear these anymore. I grabbed them all. And it was like, I was so excited. And I was like, Sean, I'm going to go throw these in the garbage right now. Is that okay? And he's like, he like hesitated. He's like, I don't know.
Like, right now?
It just feels weird. And I'm like, well, why would we wear them if the church is not true? And he's like, yeah, I guess you're right. I'm like, we wouldn't keep them for any other reason.
Yeah.
So I just dumped them in the garbage, and I was just like, never have to wear those again. It was so good.
I didn't even know how much I hated garments until I wanted them off. Like I started to feel like claustrophobic almost. But for a long time I went back and forth. Like,
oh, did you?
I'd put them on because I was still in Young Women. And then I had to go to camp and youth conference back to back, and I was like, I've got to wear garments for 2 weeks straight. But yeah, I didn't realize how much I hated them until I could wear whatever I wanted, and then I was like, wait, this is really nice.
Yeah. So now let's talk about what your life is like now and how things are, and maybe some of your biggest struggles since leaving the church.
Okay. Well, the nice thing is that the LGBT stuff is not important. It's just one aspect of our life. It used to be everything,
all consuming, yeah.
All consuming, justifying things, the mental gymnastics. We had to think about things all the time and advocate all the time. And now I don't feel that need to be such an advocate for my kid all the time, because she's fine. She is who she is.
Yeah. And she feels comfortable. And
yeah, she's settled in who she is.
A good community of friends that support her. And
she's safe at school. She's safe at work. She's,
Has it been good for her at school?
She goes to Tuacahn.
Okay.
So it's been a good fit. At first, when she was younger, she went through a lot of bullying. Just at Lava Ridge and at Snow Canyon Middle, there was a lot of bullying, and while the administrators really tried to do what they could for her, they just, at Lava Ridge they were really great. At Snow Canyon they just didn't get it.
Oh.
They cared and they wanted to help, but they weren't really willing to listen or learn anything. And they didn't really understand. And so it was, and part of that too was that she wasn't out.
Oh.
And so I didn't have her go ahead to say things, to really advocate for her. But then I took her to Tuacahn, and she was so closed to the idea of going there. She's like, I'm going to stay with my friends, even though, I have to put up with all this,
Yeah.
But she walked in, and that first day she felt like home.
Oh.
She felt like she was home. She wanted to be there.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's been a perfect fit for her ever since. She's really creative. She does animation and screenwriting, and she just loves it.
That's so
She's
cool.
happy there.
How is your family and your husband's family about you guys leaving the church, and do you think they understand? Have they been supportive?
So it's tricky. It was really tricky. Cindy came out first, and then I think it was 2 years later that we came out of the church.
Okay.
So it was, both times we kind of did
it at New Year's. Do you think they know that that's the reason, what your reason is?
Yes, to a point.
Okay.
So on my side of the family, there wasn't a huge amount of discussion about why we left the church. It was open, I was open to talking about it, but it just kind of didn't go that way. They just really didn't want to talk a lot about it.
Yeah.
My mom, when we left the church, one of the first things she said to me was, I just want you to know that Prop 8 stuff, that was wrong.
Oh.
Which, for her, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's really huge. And she is super intuitive, and she knew something was special about Cindy way before I did.
Oh, really?
And she asked me, I remember a couple of years before Cindy came out, she asked me, well, what if your oldest is gay? And I was like, if anyone's going to be gay, it's going to be, my third, she's like, what? But she knew something about Cindy, and she was kind of feeling it out. And she said, because the prophets say you should love them and you shouldn't kick them out. Yeah. And I was like, I would never kick one of my kids out. What are you talking about? But yeah, that was, she was just making sure that
she's like, you're not going to kick them out.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And she's pretty supportive of Cindy. Like when she went shopping for her first female clothes, like she did the same thing she did with me and with my daughters. Like, let's have a fashion show. I want to see, you know, she was really supportive. She changed name and pronouns, you know, probably before anybody else did. And I mean, it's been tricky. I know that she feels conflicted with the gospel, you know, but I think she understands that for me, it's this LGBT thing, and I just can't budge on it. It's not safe.
Yeah.
And my stepdad struggles more, but he's a family guy, and he wants us to show up and be there, so he will do whatever it takes, even if it's like uncomfortable for him. And my husband's family, his mom is his brother left the church before us, and so she had a really, really hard time with it. Like a really hard time. And it was right about the same time that Cindy came out. And so she struggled with both things a lot. So when we were leaving the church, my husband was really careful to take as much time as she needed, and he went on a drive with her for hours. They were gone forever. I was like wondering if they were ever going to come back. They went through everything, every issue, everything, because she'd gone through it before with his older brother, and it had been ugly. Like, they'd fought a lot, and so like he wanted to make sure that she knew that he was always going to be there, and that it didn't matter, you know, like if they disagreed, that he would always be respectful, and you know. And so yes, they get it. We set boundaries, really hard boundaries at the beginning, where we said, you know, you're going to use the right name and the right pronouns, or we won't be around. And then when we left the church, we didn't have to set those hard boundaries, because we'd already done it. We just said, we want to be involved. We love you. We don't want to miss out on anything. So we will be there for baptisms. We'll be there for blessings. We'll be there for ordinations. Whatever you want us there for, we're going to be there. And so don't tiptoe around it. Like, we know what's important in your lives, and we want to hear about it. And so everybody's been pretty good. I have one brother-in-law on my side that's like struggles, but other than that, we've maintained all of those relationships pretty well.
Well, thank you so much for being willing to share your story. I know sometimes it can be uncomfortable to share like personal information, you know?
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you being willing to do this, and I think that there's going to be a lot of people that you can really help by just sharing your story and being open about it. So thank you.
Thank you.
So great to hear your story. I appreciate it.
It's so good to meet you too.
Yeah. Let's hang out more. We'll have a wine night.
Yeah.